Afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started with our business meeting. Today's date is January 20th, 2026. The time is 2 p.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with a moment of silence. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Grant, could I get you to start us off, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to pull items 1 and 27 as a duplicate. So
Okay.
we can dispense with those two today.
Any concerns? No? All right. Public comment. Does anyone wish to speak? Hearing nothing, we will move on to, there's no meeting minutes, consent calendar. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 2 through 15.
Second.
Commissioner Eberline?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Chair Matari?
Aye, and payables.
Move that we approve the payables for the week of January 12th through 16th, 2026 in the amount of $1,595,710.43. No jury panel payments.
Excuse me, there was a set of minutes to approve.
We
We
moved it.
pulled them.
We pulled it.
Oh. Forget item 1. Thank you, sorry.
I'm waiting on a
Moves
second
day.
for the payables. Can I get a
Second.
second? I got a second.
Commissioner Eberline?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Chair Matari?
Aye. Okay, moving on to business. The first item, number 17, board approval request. This is to award the badge and weapon and ID card for the retirement of Captain Andrew Deak, and we have Under Sheriff Nelson here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Under Sheriff Brett Nelson for the record. If we could possibly tie in both 17 and 18. This is for both the award, the badge, weapon, and ID card for both Captain Andy Deak and Deputy Kevin Muzzy, who both served the Sheriff's Office and community for 23 years independently. And per state Idaho statute, I asked to come before the board for that approval to award them upon their retirement dates.
Thank you. Questions? Motion? You want to do 18 as well?
Sure. I move that we approve the award of badge, weapon, ID card for the retirements of Captain Andrew Deak and Deputy Kevin Muncie, and thank you very much for your decades of service.
Second.
Commissioner Eberline?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Chair Matari?
Aye. Thank you. Next up, item 19, board approval request. This is a request for additional funding, dynamic imaging systems subscription with the Sheriff's Office at the jail and Lieutenant Nathan Norris.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lieutenant Nate Norris for the record. Yeah, it's $1,400 that was not on the quote that we received from the company, Dynamic Imaging, but that was on the invoice. And this is the core track system we use to log all the deputies' rounds within the facility. And they have a phone assigned to each deputy in the jail on a shift.
Is this, so it's like kind of a renewal, or is this a brand-new system?
No, we've had it. It's a renewal.
Okay, a renewal. And then you have a place for the funding?
I could look.
Okay. And then, I would say just let us know by April or whatever if you think you're going to get short in a line item, unless, okay.
Yeah, Brandy Falcon for the record. To clarify, they don't have enough money in their B budget, so this is a request for funding, probably
Okay.
from fund balance or contingency funds.
Okay. I would probably say contingency then. And then I noticed that it's for 20 licenses. And can we see if there's a possibility, if you need all 20, fine. But if you don't, then maybe that's some savings.
We could go less. We typically have right now 10 to 11 deputies on a shift. Those 20 licenses cover the 20 phones. They go dead partially through the shift, so I could maybe do a couple less, but I'd like to stay with 20 if possible.
Okay.
Questions, comments? No? Okay. No. You have direction on that, but I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the request for additional funding for the dynamic imaging system subscription from contingency.
Second.
Commissioner Eberline?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Chair Matari?
Aye, thank you. Next up, item 20, construction contract, Colvico, Inc., ITD Grant AIP SP25. It's with the airport, and Ms. Stevenson, are you on the telephone?
Yes, Commissioners, thank you. Kim Stevenson for the record. This is our ITD grant that was awarded in July of 2025 from the ITD Division of Aeronautics. We had a bid opening on 12/2/25 for this project. We awarded the bid to Colvico Incorporated on 12/23/25, and now we have the construction contract in front of you for $153,608 for Colvico to complete the runway 220 runway lighting and electrical, runway 220 and 24 PAPI lighting. This is 100% reimbursable from the State Division of Aeronautics.
Thank you. Questions, motion?
I'll make a motion for construction contract Colvico ITD Grant AIP SP25 Airport.
I second that approval.
Commissioner Eberline?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Chair Matari?
Aye, motion carries. Next up, thank you. Next up is item 21. This is grant application 15PJDP-22-GG-04959-TITL Ratify 2026 Juvenile Justice Training Grant application with the Idaho Office of Juvenile Justice in the amount of $14,858.22 with no match requirement, Office of Emergency Management, and Ms. Andrea Littlefield. Are you on the telephone?
She's in.
I'm right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Andrea Littlefield for the record. Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management is bringing before the board the 2026 Juvenile Justice Training Grant. Leslie had signed on Friday, January 16th, 2026. This grant application was brought in on Thursday, January 15th, and with the deadline of Friday, January 16th. This grant is to send 6 officers to the National Association of School Resource Officers at the end of June. This grant would be an opportunity for free SRO training. The grant amount is for $14,858.22, and this has, with no match.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. I'm just kind of curious, has the Sheriff's Office talked with the school boards at all about the rate for next year with the SROs? Because that was a discussion last year.
I don't have an answer for that.
Commissioners, Undersheriff Brett Nelson for the record. Yes, we are in conversation with the school districts, respective school districts that we service, informing them that their rates possibly may be going up in regards to further negotiations moving on. Yes, they have been made aware of that.
And what has their receptivity been toward that?
They said they were open for discussions moving forward with
Yeah.
Captain Smart and Lieutenant Hedlund.
Okay. I mean, it's just one of those things where, from my perspective, I don't know what to expect next year. And, we know what we lost this year, which is about 400,000, just under that, as far as, what we're paying the deputies and what we're getting in return. And I know that we need people on the street, and so it's just a matter of where are we going to be, and by doing this, is this, are these people still going to be around next year? Meaning, are we going to enter into another contract?
With that further direction, I will ensure that our staff meets sooner than later to ensure that, to get a direction from each respective school district in regards to their commitment moving forward.
Yeah, I think their budget season starts, I think their fiscal year is July 1.
Correct, so they should be begun, if you will, if not very, very soon.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be talking about that at the end of this meeting, how that cost calculation will be determined.
Okay?
So if it's understood that the school systems are likely going to have to pay more, they're their own taxing district. This has been a discussion point for me for quite some time. There's no reason in the world why the county should be subsidizing other taxing districts with county services, in my opinion. If the board wants to do that, that's certainly the board's prerogative, but,
I concur.
you know, so that's the one thing, as long as they're aware of that.
I will reiterate with my staff to ensure that they reach out in a timely manner.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the grant application 15PJDP 22GG04959 TITL, and this is for the 2026 Juvenile Justice Training Grant, and it's with the Idaho Office of Juvenile Justice in the amount of $14,858.22, no match required.
Second.
Commissioner Eberline,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chair Matari.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, item 22, board approval request. This is amendment number 1, autopsy lab project with Gino Construction and our building and grounds and our director, Jeff Fuller.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an amendment similar to what we brought to you with a previous general contract that is tying the guaranteed maximum price proposal that was already approved by the board to the contract.
Thank you. Questions? Motion?
I move that we approve the amendment number 1 for the autopsy lab project with Gino Construction.
I concur.
Commissioner Eberline,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chair Matari.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next up is, and these are status update items, Motorola Cloud Proposal, Digital Evidence, Management Quote. It's a discussion item. We have Board of County Commissioners listed, but who wants to take the lead on this? Grant?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. Grant Kinsey, Network Admin, for the record. What this is a, it's called DEMS, Digital Evidence Management System. This has been a multi-year endeavor that we've been trying to get to for the Sheriff's Office. What we're doing right now is we have a system called WatchGuard. What that does is it allows us to upload or download our body-worn video evidence and our in-car video evidence. And that goes into a system, and then we're able to look at it, do some operations on it. It's very antiquated, and it's very tough to integrate throughout the county. For instance, sharing data to the prosecutor. We actually have to have the prosecutor have an account at the Sheriff's Department to log into this thing and use it, which is somewhat inappropriate, even though they are CJIS background checked. There's a lot of things that the system does, but really what I want to kind of tell you today is the high level of where we're at with it. It's a system that, since we know we've been looking at maybe doing something else for the last couple of years, we've put off doing anything with it as far as hardware upgrades and support. Just kind of seeing the writing on the wall. So it's definitely time to do something. And if we were to put the hardware into it that is actually needed today, it would cost us about $500,000 to get all the storage in place and have it replicated and do all the things it needs to do to be what we need. So I want to leave you with that number, because that's kind of the number we're rolling back to for this new solution today. The proposal for Motorola for this new cloud system would be about $500,000, but that would be annual payments of $100,000 a year over the next 5 years. It's more of a subscription model like anything else, just like our Office 365 subscription that we deal with. So never like to come to you with numbers like that, because the $100,000 essentially is an ask. But what we do have going for us is we're paying some support on that hardware that's on-prem right now. Then that would basically just go away. So that's to the tune of about $27,000 that we could take right off of that $100,000. We also located a $5,000 item this year for Motorola, because we've been doing a lot of auditing with Motorola. What are we paying for you for, and what are we getting? Found a little item that was no longer needed, so that was off the books for 26. So whether we want to consider that or not is definitely up to you. But just to give you a little bit of, again, that high level of what we'd be gaining by adopting this extra, essentially around $70,000 a year, would be putting all of our digital evidence in one place. Right now, we've got our documents, they're in one system, the Spillman Flex system. We've got our video evidence in this old WatchGuard system. We've got other evidence that's stored on network drives and stuff. So when we're trying to build a case and get it to the prosecutor, time is of the essence, right? If they don't have all that evidence in place, the person's usually going to be released. I'm not going to get my terminology right, Zach, but they're going to be released under investigation or something, and it can have serious impact on the case. So what this thing does is it gives us that integration, keeps all the data in one place. We can submit our photos, our audio, our video, documents, everything can go into this system, and then we can compile a case. And then the next big thing is the secure sharing that we can do. Right now, I mentioned before, the prosecutor has to log into the system to get video evidence. They have to download other data from the evidence department up at the sheriff's through another mechanism. They've got to compile all this data together. Sometimes it's snail mail, bring a thumb drive from here to there, or a CD from here to there. This gets all that data into one place. It also allows us to get that data from, say, the Walmart shoplifter, where a deputy would probably have to go out there, sit down with them, get the data extracted onto a thumb drive, bring it back, have IT scan it, IT approves it, it goes up into the system or shared on a network drive somewhere, and then we have it. We can literally, with this system, just send a link to Walmart, send it in an email and say, open this up, you're gonna have to sign up for a quick password, but then you're gonna be able to drop your data directly into here. And this system has thousands of variants of the different videos it can ingest and play. So now we're getting our video from third party as well, going directly into the system without hours of deputy time and other back-end management time getting put into that. It's also got citizen input to where we can, if an event happened, like the Canfield incident, if that might not be a good example, something that's more public and everyone's got their phone out when something's going on. We can create a portal where the public can start uploading all of that data, and it makes it so much easier, because it's fine for someone to upload a video and share it on Facebook, because that's all up by the click of a button. But for someone to come to the sheriff's office and say, hey, I recorded something, do you want this? How do we get this from them to us, and how do we do it securely? Having this portal is going to invite that community participation for instances like that as well. A couple other high-level things real quick is transcriptions and narratives. We spend tons of hours on overtime right now on a deputy coming back and writing up the report and everything. And I know there's some stigma about using AI to write police reports, but there's a lot, this thing is purposely built and purpose-driven for law enforcement. So those things have been considered, right down to the point where if it takes a body-worn camera, an hour worth of footage, and writes a transcription out of that, first of all, they guarantee absolutely nothing will ever be added to it. And if we choose to do it, we can put checks and balances in there too that say, as I was running down the street to try to catch the perpetrator, Pink Dragon jumped out of the tree, and then I proceeded in the house. So it can put weird things in there, so the deputy or whoever's writing the report has to proof this thing. They have to take that nonsense out so that we can prove that someone's not just letting AI do their job for them, right? We can have the thing, we can have measures in there to make sure it's doing what we need to save some time, but by getting it all transcribed, but we're still taking ownership by going through and making sure it is our words, not some AI model's words. Right now, when we do redaction for some of the video, we've got to buy these basically supercomputers for our records department to use. They cost probably $5,000 to $6,000 a piece, because redaction, you're taking a video and you're editing it, you're blocking out someone's face and you're blocking out a license plate. This system, all of that gets offloaded into the cloud. So our users can go back to using just a regular workstation. And the cloud has all the horsepower in the background to do all that heavy lifting for redaction. So there's a cost saving to be realized there, both from the hardware and from the labor standpoint. And then it has device management. It's going to keep everything in order. All of our squad cars that have the cameras in it, to the lapel worn body cameras, all of that's going to be in the system. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things we worked on through this Motorola audit is finding out, okay, well, we bought all these cameras, but what license did they come with? And then we replaced a few cameras. Did those come off the books, and did the new ones come on? Are we truly paying for what we need to pay for? This keeps that all in. Motorola's realized they had a big problem there with inventory management, so they've included it and extended it to us to use that for inventory management in the system. One thing about that AI stuff that's going on, and it's always a concern with AI, is that whether they're using our data to train their AI brain. And there's a guarantee in the system as well that that is not happening. They will not use customer data. And all of our data, we own it, we control it, even though it's in their cloud. There's provisions in there that are mandated from the federal level that they cannot own it, we own it, they can't control it, we control it. So if we decide to pull the plug one day, they don't get to hold us hostage with our data or anything like that. That's pretty much the flyover. The only other thing I'd leave you with is that the system that we're on, yes, it's technically supported. We can continue to pay for support, but Motorola is not going to put any R&D into that system. It's going to stay what it is, and every time, and this has been going on for the last couple of years, whenever they come on a sales meeting to show us what's latest in law enforcement, what's this, and we say, oh, well, we like that thing over there, how do we do that? It's always, oh, well, you're going to need to be on the cloud system to take use of that, just because that's where it's built into. It's never getting built backwards into the on-prem system. So the longer we stay on this system that lives here, the farther behind we're getting with the current technologies that are available to law enforcement out there. So I have said a lot of words, and I want to stop and see if you guys have any questions.
Well, thank you. You did say a lot of words, and there was a lot of value apparently with this program. Are there any questions?
Grant, in the past, you've been really good at getting discounts. Is there anything available on this particular?
I'd say we've already kind of done that legwork, and the reason I say that is we even went out and, which would be catastrophically complex, looked at competitors to Motorola as a part of this process. And those competitors have been anywhere from 300 to 500 times the amount of what we're looking at right here. So 300,000 to 500,000 annually. So to find one and it to be the one that we're currently with, so the least biggest hurdle to get to to the cloud, to have it be at this price is a pretty good deal. I can certainly, and I will go ask, but I'm guessing we've sharpened that pencil down to a nub with them already.
So aside from the 32,000 ongoing, essentially 67,000, where's that going to come from?
That would be an ask, and it would probably be an ask from the IT operating budget.
Okay, and you have money to cover that this year?
Not this year. This is something, unless the Sheriff's Department wants to proceed immediately, I would put in my B budget for FY26, and we would start October 1. But I do believe if it would make sense and the board would want to start sooner, we could look at fund balance to do it now for the first year, and then get it put into operational budget for the following 4 years. And I should note that year one is slightly more than 100,000 because there are some upfront setup fees, about 105,000 for first year.
Okay. So you are fine with waiting till October 1 is what I just heard you say?
I am, from a budgetary and a technological standpoint. I would ask the sheriff's office to comment on their urgency to get the system up and running. I don't want to speak for them on that.
Zach Sifford for the record. Obviously, the want would be to get it up and rolling immediately. I think it's not unreasonable to wait till October. I will say that this will tremendously help deputies' time. When it is working correctly, they can upload out in the field to the cloud-based service. Right now, they have to drive back to the sheriff's office for it to upload. And so it's continually uploading throughout traffic stops and calls for service. That's a time consumption in itself. So there are some benefits of, I don't have those numbers for you, but there are times when the uploading speeds can be significantly delayed, and there is overtime being spent waiting for a deputy's videos to be uploaded so that they can secure for the rest of their days off. So operationally, it would truly make a lot of sense to just get it up and going.
I have one question, and it really is geared towards just the overall system, because I'm a big proponent of using technology. I also know there's a lot of people on staff who are not technology-oriented, right? And so it requires training. And if we were to purchase this today, I'm sure that there would be lots of training for everyone involved to be able to learn how to use it. But as time goes by, people leave, new people come in. And so I would like to see some sort of safeguards in place that ensures that people are properly trained and get continuous training on using the technology, because I know that we pay a lot of money for technology at the sheriff's office and we're not fully utilizing it. And there's a reason for that. We buy it, but we don't make it a point to make sure that the people using it know everything about what it is that we're paying for. And so I am all for it, and I think we could find the money perhaps, but I would like us to start focusing on ensuring that every person who touches it, including the prosecutor's office, is fully trained up on it. Because if you have a prosecutor who doesn't understand what this software can really do, we're buying it, it's there, but there's a disconnect. And that's what I want to try to avoid, is that disconnect. So if there's a way that we can develop these kind of programs where we either know that someone didn't get training and they have to get training for it, or that there's some sort of recurring refresher courses so people know exactly what to do, because you'll never get the full cost savings if people don't know how to use it. I mean, it's like, hey, it's great we have Microsoft Excel, but if you don't know how to use it, what good is it?
Yeah.
Right?
On that note, Commissioner, this week we have, Spillman is actually here doing Train the Trainer, and so we have created a work group, including the prosecutor's office and records, and every department that Spillman touches are represented, and they're on site training us and train the trainer so we can go back and train the rest of the users. And then next month, WatchGuard is actually coming out and doing the same thing with us for the WatchGuard body camera system. So we're starting to implement that concept of continual training and not just being a single point of failure.
Yeah. Well, unless the board has any objection, maybe y'all can talk with the finance director, see if there's not an opportunity to find some money somewhere. And if there is, we can talk more about it. And if there isn't, let's just look at putting it into the budget next year. And
If I may, I believe there probably is money available in the IT fund balance. I will, of course, talk with the finance director before coming back to you, but I'm just wanting to clarify the direction that we're getting. If we find money, that's the proposal you'd like us to bring back to you is implementing now with if funds can be found that are available to do this.
Well, especially if it saves overtime, I think that's a huge issue. If somebody doesn't have to come back to, like, for instance, you, Lieutenant Sifford, if you don't have to come all the way back to Hayden before you go home, then that will save.
I'll clarify that a little bit. So getting the deputies to be able to upload out in the field also requires another piece of hardware. So that is part of the overtime savings. Part of the overtime savings is report writing, redacting, some other stuff like that too. So the specific issue of the deputies being able to upload out in the field all day long as they're working, I believe is contingent on the cars being outfitted with the Sierra, the Cradle Point type device. So every new car, we're already planning on, they're gonna start coming with that, but we're gonna have to retrofit some cars backward too to get that going. So I just don't wanna give a false sense that day one when this thing goes live, that particular instance is gonna be in full bloom, but we will get there, so.
And on the overtime, that's regular. That's on a specific case where the time can't be comped off during the regular work week or something crazy like that. That's not a huge astronomical number.
yeah, but saving time emailing the businesses, uploading their video, things like that.
Correct.
I mean, that will have an immediate benefit, I would presume, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you have direction then.
Sounds good. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, next up, this is item 24. Status update policy, oh gosh, my eyes here, policy 930 revisions. And we have Brandy Falcon, our finance director.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandy Falcon for the record. I wanted to have a discussion with the board regarding Policy 930, which, as you know, is the county's expenditure policy. A couple things. The way the policy is currently written is actually different than what's being done in practice. So you're all familiar with departments will come to you for permission to expend funds over $10,000. In the policy 930, that's actually not written into the capital expense section. The $10,000 threshold is actually in the B budget section in this policy. And currently, really what's happening is departments are asking the board for permission for capital expenditures, the ones over 10,000, and B budget is not really coming to the board. And we currently have a lot of B budget expenses that are over $10,000 that are not coming to the board for approval. The best examples are the county's utility bills for most facilities, and then also our medical claims. We have other examples out there, but those are the two easiest examples I can give. And so specifically, the $10,000 threshold, just the way it's written in here right now, is not really being enforced and practically really can't be. If it was up to the auditor's office, and I've spoken with a couple different departments that do significant amounts of purchasing, having the $10,000 limit in general does create an administrative burden for my office and the department. It slows down purchasing, and it's not super efficient. So I wanted to get the board's thoughts on if there were to be a revised policy 930, which I think we should, what the board wants to do in regards to that $10,000 threshold.
So when you talk about the B budget items, aren't those contracts? I mean, don't you kind of have a contract for?
The utility bills are not contracts. Medical claims are not contracts. So there are some that are contracts, but there are definitely some that are not.
Well, what was the rationale for implementing this policy? I mean, I know there was a reason.
It's checks and balances, and we were having, under a particular elected official was egregious, and so it came forward that we needed to have this policy, and it was recommended by legal to have this check and balance in there. And legal actually wanted a lower amount than 10,000, but in reviewing a lot of the payments, then I suggested it go to 10,000. And then we even have a couple different departments who have a higher threshold, like solid waste has 20,000 because of their high purchases. So I still like the idea of having some type of overt check and balance. Utility bills, I mean, I don't really even see this
They can
an
vary
issue.
too. They can vary too.
Yeah, so again, utility bills weren't necessarily contemplated because they're a known thing and they're ongoing. So if you want utility bills to start coming before us, I mean, they are approved in the batch.
It just, it makes it hard for my office because it puts us in a really gray area. And I feel like I'm asked to make a personal decision whether or not a department needs to ask the board for approval if it's over 10,000, just because the policy is not written in a way that's easy for me to enforce and make clear-cut calls. And so there are some good things in here that I would like to keep. For example, that elected officials cannot overspend any budget classification, which is A, B, C, and we also have D budget now. I like that it says that departments cannot use budgeted funds, especially for capital projects, for something different than what the board approved them to be used for. And I would like to add a section for D budget, which is leases and software-based IT agreements. And then also the BOCC is the contracting body of the county, is my understanding. So even changing a $10,000 threshold does not change the fact that if a department wants to enter into a contract, they need board approval to do so. So there are good things in there that I would like to keep. And then, yes, just looking for board direction on the threshold, the $10,000 threshold? And if you want a threshold, do you want it to be for B or C budget? I think B budget makes it really difficult.
Well, I think the first question is, what do we want to accomplish, right? Because once we know what we want to accomplish, then everything else should fall into place to support that. It sounds like we had some renegade spenders. That's what it sounds like, right? And so whether it's the board or it's somebody else who's looking at this stuff, somebody's got to look at it so it doesn't happen after the fact. Now, I recognize that the statute has remedies for some things, but it's the overall budget. It's not, you know, a particular expenditure. So, I don't know. I mean, I have to think about that a little bit myself. You know, I'd like to know if there's even just a category of expenditures that were the real issue, because this is, I mean, is there anything you can share with us that?
It just, things had gotten, and I've experienced this in government a lot. You have a policy and then there's a practice, and sometimes the practice sways. And that's what had happened. By the time I got a hold of it, the practice was so far off the policy that we just had to scoop it all up, bring it back. And this was something that all the departments that I talked to could live with. They weren't necessarily excited about it, but they could live with it. I'm fine to look at some different language, and then we can review it with legal and see what, you know, what will make this better. Because again, I don't want to stand in the way of business, but I do really like the transparency to the public of when these large chunks are being spent. Medical is a different thing for me, and if we want to have an executive session, you know, quarterly on our medical, then that's fine, but I don't really want that subject to our policy.
I would prefer that we remove the $10,000 cap out of the B budget section, because those are like operational expenses that are recurring. And if you want a $10,000 or even a higher dollar amount limit, that be moved to the C budget section. That more closely aligns with what's happening now in practice. But I can meet with any of you one-on-one if you want to talk about it further. But this is something that I would like to get rewritten in a more workable fashion, both for my office and the departments. And I figured as we're approaching the next budget cycle is a good time to start having that conversation.
I agree.
The only question I have is just what is it, because the budget category is just broad enough that people are spending money within the budget category, and then, but it was still within the budget that was allotted to them? Or were they spending money outside of the category and they didn't, and they were just trying to rob Peter to pay Paul in this particular situation?
Yeah.
Because they were given $2 million, they figured they could buy whatever they want with $2 million.
Correct.
So,
Just for a little color to this, that was happening. Where there were, you know, these various buckets of money within a budget, or elected officials' budget. And without much oversight, one bucket was being put into another bucket. So I think, I don't know all of the history of this policy. I didn't write the policy. I've had involvement with this issue over the years. I think that issue, Commissioner Matoria, was one of the issues of let's keep budgets discrete in the way that they show up as, you know, in the budget, and as the budget law requires. You know, appropriations are supposed to be for specific things and not mixed and matched. The other kind of issue here is that it's the Board of County Commissioners that has the power and authority to purchase goods and services, right? That power can be delegated, but it requires like some kind of policy, doesn't require an ordinance, but at least requires some sort of affirmative statement to an elected official or department head to do that. I think this policy was an attempt to account for that. Otherwise, you're in this situation where an elected official has to come to the board to ask to buy a pencil, right? If only the commissioners can approve certain, really approve all purchases. This was an effort to say, okay, up to a certain amount, within your budget, within your line items, you're given authority to make reasonable expenditures, right? And I think that's where, it used to be a $5,000 limit several years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it's been maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, but that limit was raised to $10,000. So that limit was really kind of set to put some constraint, a reasonable constraint on an elected official, but also give them the ability to not have to come to the board and ask permission to buy a pencil or a chair or something that's a kind of a low value item that is already in their B budget, right? So there's a little bit of a give and take there. You know, I'm not aware of a lot of these issues. No one's really came to me about this, so I didn't really get much of a heads up, but these are just some of the thoughts I have. As far as like utility bills, I don't know how those are accounted for in individual electeds' budgets, but the Board of Commissioners is ultimately responsible to provide a building and to pay for utilities. So I'm not sure why that would be impacted by a $10,000 limit and paying for medical for an employee. I mean, that should be covered by the BFCC anyway. That's part of the management of the self-insurance of employees. So it sounds like there's some issues that definitely need to be addressed. Probably want to take a step back before you make any decisions. Figure out exactly the issues, the particular like categories of issues that the auditor's office has, and then figure out. I just looked at the policy briefly. It is vague, somewhat ambiguous. It's also a little strange, I think, that it's in a personnel manual. It probably needs to be its own policy.
HR is working on separating personnel
Yeah,
issues from operations.
That's good. That needs to happen. A spending policy that applies to department heads and elected officials really shouldn't be in a policy manual, personnel policy manual.
It's
Kind
also,
of a different issue, but
it's also confusing because the policy that's in the personnel policy manual is out of date. So if you want the
Yeah,
most
that's right.
up-to-date policy 930, you have to go get it's kept outside the
Right.
policy manual.
right, it is
So
confusing. The way
departments
the
get-
policy is written, it's not
departments
that
get
helpful.
confused.
I understand why you're having issues with it.
And I asked the accounts payable department to be sending me examples of operational expenses over 10,000, and my inbox was just getting flooded every week. So there's a lot of operational expenses over 10,000. We would have to be before the board every single week with a lot of expenses with that $10,000 threshold in the B budget. And like I said, it puts me in a position in my department where we want to treat all departments equally, and this is just so vague that, I feel like we might make a call to let one thing not require board approval, but then if the commissioners are reviewing the accounts payable batch and then they ask us why we didn't make a department get approval, it's just hard for my department.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
just know the last time this came up several years ago, it was those two issues, Bruce. Not switching money from one budget center to another, and putting some constraints on purchases where the board, like I said, didn't have to approve every little expenditure up to a limit.
I get that. I think what it sounds like is that the budget categories need to be tightened up a little bit.
Well, and that's a good part of the policy I like, is that A budget cannot go over, B budget cannot go over. So the elected official can't go over in every budget classification, and they can't commingle between the
Okay.
two without board approval.
So, and then having some discretionary money for little things, and then having stuff that is non-discretionary in essence, that if this is what you want the money for, we're approving it based upon what you're telling us, and not coming up with a list that sounds good in June, and then come October or November, well, we don't really need that, so now we want to spend the money on X. I mean, that's what it sounds like was the problem.
Well, it was actually worse than that.
Well, how can it be worse in dollars or worse in how they're spent? Because it's hard for me to sit here and go, well, how can we make this better if I don't understand what the problem was?
Well, and I'm happy to go into executive session and we can talk
All right,
specific people and exactly what the problem was, but
well, maybe towards the end then, we could go into executive session. Because I know you want to try to.
well, huh? Okay.
Sorry, that's probably a good idea.
Sure. And I'm happy to see what the auditor suggests for revisions, and we can have that conversation. The other thing in here that I think is pretty pretty good is unapproved expenditures outside of a B budget organizational set, so division. So meaning that you have the sheriff's ABC, but you can't transfer between patrol and jail without coming to the board. So that's that organizational thing, and it's, you know, like the prosecutor has 5 divisions, the clerk has 5 divisions. So I think that's an important aspect of it. So just, you know, getting a little bit more detail of what the auditors.
Yeah, because I would say even that is not being really followed right now. So there's a lot, this is just such a
It's not being
vague-
followed?
No, not 100%. It's very difficult to parse out what departments are adhering to certain things and what are not, and the decisions that we are asked to make all the time. You know, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but if patrol has an expense and they have extra money in the jail, if they want to move money from the jail's budget to patrol's budget to pay for it, I'm certain that that type of thing has happened before. And this is just very difficult for us to understand exactly. And I wasn't here when this was written, and I'm told that at the time it was written, the auditor's office had a lot of concerns about it, and it's just become more and more difficult.
Well, without really fully appreciating the problem we're trying to solve, I don't know, and it happened before you. I'm not sure that any revision from you or me would be able to address the problem that you had to deal with before.
I can meet one-on-one with Commissioner Duncan maybe to discuss.
I think this is
or-
needs a larger forum to talk about.
Yeah. Well, it's on the radar, so let's revisit it in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll have some ideas.
Probably more than a couple weeks, just because of our travel schedule.
February first week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Next up, item 25, status update item, FY '27 SRO contract overhead methodology. It's a discussion item, and Brandy Falcon.
Yes, this actually is supposed to just read contract overhead methodology, because we'll be discussing more than just the school resource officers. So I would like to have some board discussion and direction on what you would like me to do for overhead costs and contract costs for all of the sheriff's contracts, since we're approaching our FY '27 budget cycle. So we provide dedicated and enhanced service for City of Hayden, City of Dalton Gardens. We charge an hourly rate to the City of Hayden Lake for certain calls that the sheriff's office handles. I believe when their chief is out of town, and for certain cases that our detectives may handle for the City of Hayden Lake at their request. The City of Fernand pays us $161.03 per month. There is no contract for that amount, and in speaking with the city, they said they've been paying that since like the 1970s. And no, at this point, nobody is still around to have a super clear answer, and so my recommendation on that one would be that we cease the $161 a month, because they're not receiving any enhanced service for that. I believe they think they're paying that just because they don't have their own police department. There's no formal agreement I can find regarding that dollar amount. And then NIC, we have a lieutenant that is out at the Post Academy at NIC, and then we have 6 school resource officers. So the cities, I believe, would like a budget number by March 1st from the county, and I can give an estimate by March 1st with the understanding that in May, the overhead cost will be updated to reflect the sheriff's FY '27 budget requests, which I will not have until the end of May, which is when they are required by law to submit them to the auditor's office. So I can provide a draft by March 1st, and then the schools are on a different fiscal year than the county. They're on the same fiscal year as the state of Idaho. So they need their budget number by March 1st at the latest, but I won't be able to provide them any updated number later on. So for the school resource officers, I would like direction on how much of the loaded cost of the deputy do you want the schools to pay? And do you want that to be the average loaded cost of just a deputy, not the specific deputy in that position? And then is there an overhead percentage that you want to charge the schools as well? And we'll go down to the cities once we discuss the school resource officers.
Thoughts?
I like getting started earlier than later, for sure. So definitely the average deputy costs because too many things happen and we can't keep the same deputy in the same location. So I think that's important. As far as overhead, I mean, I really wasn't looking, I don't have all of my notes and everything from what we did last year to further dissect it. So I don't really have further discussion on that without looking back at my notes and the spreadsheets that were given last year.
Well, Commissioner Eberline, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we need to get down to the bottom of it.
Yeah, well, I think, right now, we're in these contracts at a loss. You may recall last summer, I went through the whole numbers with the board. A $383,000 loss in the sense of what we're getting paid versus what it costs us. You can't make that up in volume.
No, you can't.
And that was with a 25% overhead. So 25% of the loaded salary of the deputy was, added on for overhead. I think we use 40% for the law enforcement contract.
For City of Hayden, we use 40%.
Yeah, and I think the actual is around 60, 59,
It was,
60.
And they changed the structure of how they pay for animal control. So instead of paying animal control as overhead across all deputies, instead the contract is now just one average cost animal control officer. So
Yeah.
changing the structure of that brought down the overhead to 51% actual. And
That was for their contract, but for
Yes.
the overall overhead of the sheriff's office, it was pretty
it
negligible.
was about, yeah.
Yeah, and it increased, it actually went down more because there were fewer deputies for it to be amortized over. That was one of the other things too, because we dropped the number of deputies in the contract. I think 25% is a reasonable number
For the overhead for the school resource officers.
because there's still equipment that's being used. It's not being used as much. The other thing is that we never have this discussion, and it has to be included, that for an SRO contract, there's a backfill component. That we've been pulling deputies off the street at the expense of the street and patrol services for the benefit of the schools at a reduced rate from what it costs the county. And so that backfill cost has to be addressed too, which I believe is about 200,000 and some change according to your numbers.
I think an average cost loaded deputy from last year was almost $130,000, but that doesn't include a vehicle.
Yes.
That doesn't include any of the vehicle or equipment or overhead costs. That's just the wage. So in terms of the loaded wage for those deputies, do you want the schools to pay 100% of that wage or a certain percentage of that loaded wage?
Thoughts on that?
Again, I would have preferred to have all my information in front of me, so.
Yeah, well, go ahead. The problem is that,
These are talking points to get the, we need to get down to deep dive.
yeah, well, the problem is that in order to backfill, you can't get, 80% or 88% of a deputy because the SRO is going to be working a few days in the summertime. We have to get a full deputy. And so I would argue that we should look at the full expense. I mean, we already just approved a grant for them to go on training. I presume that they will go on vacation during the summer months. So, how much time would they actually be in patrol helping out on the street? And if it was significant, then we could have that discussion.
Yeah, I don't really have any data on their vacation usage. I know they're encouraged to take vacation that aligns with the school year, but in practice, I don't know how that is usually
Yeah.
being done. So at this time, are there at least two commissioners that want to give direction on doing the full loaded cost of the deputy plus 25% overhead, or should I come back next week?
Thoughts? I mean, I kind of shared where mine were.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a deeper dive.
So we can address it on the 30th or the first week of February again,
Okay, I'll come back at the next available meeting. And
which is
between-
January 30th.
Perfect. And between now and then, please let me know what information I can provide you that will help you make the decision.
Yes.
Overhead expense, total salary, loaded expense, vacation time. I don't know if we can get that information from the sheriff's office. How much time are they going to be on vacation, and how much time are they going to be away on training? And effectively, what are their effective hours in patrol, from all these other activities? How many hours are they actually going to be patrolling? And I would presume even while they're patrolling, what they're doing is filling in for vacation time for other deputies. So it's not like we're getting additional boots on the ground.
Okay, I'll come back regarding the school resource officers. For the lieutenant out at NIC, do we want to charge 100% of the loaded cost of that lieutenant? And we did add a new lieutenant position for NIC. That was a new FTE that we added. And do you want to charge any overhead costs with that?
Do you know what the percentage is right now of what we are charging and what they are increasing it each year?
So NIC, I believe, is only paying us $125. Let me just double check really quickly. No, NIC is paying us $150, and the loaded cost of that lieutenant was $192.
Which of course isn't necessarily fair because that's a long-term lieutenant.
I think most lieutenants are going to be long-term employees in general. And that lieutenant, the overtime budget for NIC right now is $5,000, and so far this year, we've already paid almost $15,000 in overtime. So we will have to increase the overtime budget next year for this contract. So for FY '26, the loaded personnel expense for that was $192, almost $193.
Is there a way that we could do a time and material on this and not have to focus on an annual rate, especially when we have an hourly rate and you have this overtime that it's hard to anticipate?
Does the NIC lieutenant under sheriff spend all their time at NIC, or are they doing other work for the sheriff's office? Because if they spend the entire year at NIC, I don't know.
Commissioner, Under Sheriff Nelson, the lieutenant we currently have out there, his primary role is strictly out there as an ancillary duty. He is our PIO from time to time, creating and releasing a press release on behalf of me and the sheriff. But other than that, he is totally released to work out at NIC at the academy out there in Post Falls.
I mean, if it's reimbursable, we should try to seek the cost, especially for creating a position, right?
Yeah, we added that position just for that contract. So are you saying seek payment for 100% of the loaded cost of that lieutenant? Is that what you're saying?
Preferably.
Okay. Is there any other thoughts from the other two commissioners?
So we won't be including overtime or overhead. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that would be my next question is, do you also, this lieutenant is incurring overtime, so do you want to also charge the cost of his overtime? And then do you want to charge any overhead for that position as well?
Is the overtime for the school?
For NIC, I would have to get the sheriff's office to look at that. I would assume almost all of it.
I don't know if much, if any, overtime is associated. He has the ability to flex his schedule as necessary to minimize the overtime itself. If there's overtime, it'll be through other endeavors. For instance, the lieutenant that's currently assigned out there showed up at the Wallace incident and assisted greatly with my command staff out there. So there will be overtime, but I can't directly associate that or know of any that would be directly associated. Maybe some of the overtime maybe for the graduation twice a year, but I'm not certain.
I think what it comes down to is that if we're going to be in contracts, that we just need to account for the expense on these contracts, and then that way we can get reimbursed for it.
And we can do the average loaded cost of all lieutenants instead of just that specific lieutenant that's in that position. That will probably lower it a little bit. But okay, is the board okay with 100% of the average loaded cost of a lieutenant for that contract?
I would say start there. I guess my concern is that we come up with this figure and NIC says, okay, no, thank you. And then, we suffer the consequences of that. So I want to make sure that we're just still working with these people to get to eventually 100% with, you know, potentially some overhead in there.
They're really close right now at 150, so hopefully that.
But
they
that's
can
still
get
not
there.
overhead, though.
Yeah, so does the
Right.
board want to charge any overhead?
Commissioners, I might add, just for clarification, much of the overtime associated to that lieutenant's position is for simply opening and closing the location of the academy before and after all personnel have departed for the day.
Well, then, there you go. That's part of the cost of the contract.
Okay, so include the overtime, that's what I'm hearing.
Anything else?
What about overhead for this lieutenant? Are you wanting to charge overhead or not?
Is he driving a car?
Yes, he is.
Well, then that's an expense.
And what overhead percentage would you like to do?
Assuming he's not driving it all the time, I would stick with the same rate as the SRO.
25%?
If he's driving it all the time and it's running the whole time, then that's the other thing, is that it's not that they drive as much, it's that they're running 24/7 a lot of times. And that just rattles the motor apart.
Not 24/7, because we work 410s.
Well,
work
if they,
410s.
well, they're running the entire 10 hours or however many hours,
Typically, yes, because
unless
of
they swap the cars out.
the batteries there, we have to keep the cars running so our computers don't die. So yes, it's the hours, engine hours, not the totality of the engine, or the life of the vehicle or the
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah. And we don't swap motors out, do we, for low-mile vehicles with high hours on them?
No, they're the cars as themselves, just for the totality. So it's typically, the only time we'll salvage a vehicle in that sense would be if we blew an engine or something of that nature. Hence the reason we don't move forward with some of Ford's vehicles. They have turbos, and according to Russ in the shop, those turbos start around 15,000 plus to replace. That's why we don't seek those type of engines in our vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay, so for NIC, 100% of the average loaded cost of a lieutenant, 25% overhead, and then the loaded cost of overtime.
It's fine. I don't know that they're going to be able to come up with that money, but.
Well, let's look at how much it cost us. I mean, quite honestly, we're in these pickles because we enter into agreements at below cost, because that way people say yes. But when the real cost comes out, then it's like, well, wait a second, why are we subsidizing this? So at least let's work off the real numbers, and then we can have that discussion with the entity. But we've been kind of working off these partial numbers, which it's almost like the 800-pound elephant is in the room and no one wants to talk about it. Let's look at what the real cost is so we can have an honest discussion.
So at the next meeting on the 30th, I can come back with dollar amounts for what we're discussing right now, so you can see that. To go back to the school resource officers, their overtime budget is $14,000 for FY26. So far, they've spent $27,000. So do we want to, we'll have to increase that overtime budget for FY27. Do you want to look at also charging the schools for the overtime those officers are incurring?
If it's,
I think that's a good thing, because they should be paying the tab.
look, if this is a cost of these contracts, we need to be accounting for it and showing them.
Okay, I'll include that in the data at the meeting on the 30th, so you can see what that looks like. Now, going to the cities, which is City of Hayden Lake, City of Dalton City of Hayden, City of Dalton Gardens, they have dedicated service. I did a couple presentations to the board on how I calculated overtime. The last budget cycle, I was planning to do the same methodology this budget cycle, unless the board wants to give me direction to do something different. I also wanted to know if the board wants me to include the cost of ICRIMP for all the support staff. So in my initial overhead calculation, I included the cost of ICRIMP only for the wages of the deputies in that contract. I did not include the cost of ICRIMP for all of the administrative support staff and all of the command staff that's included in that overhead percentage. That is paid out of the board's budget instead of the sheriff's budget. Is that something the board would like me to include this time around?
I don't see why, because I don't think we're going to be laying off support staff if we have less SROs or less.
From what I've been told by the sheriff's office, we will not be laying off deputies because they are needed, since we don't have enough in the unincorporated county at this time. So if they're freed up from the City of Hayden contract, they're available to patrol unincorporated county, and citizens there are then
I thought we were
receiving
talking about support staff.
I know, but I'm talking, yes, so
You're
laying
talking about
people
that as an
off,
overhead.
we're not laying any deputies off, and then support staff, I was thinking to include it because it reflects the true cost that the county pays for them. I wasn't relating it in any way to them being laid off.
Yeah, it would be nice if we understood the ratio of support staff to deputies, things like that, because that would help. Because there's no way to really understand, we kind of walked into this with these contracts. If we, my example earlier was if we had 100 deputies today and then we entered into a contract that needed 20 deputies, every additional expense incurred by the sheriff's office for those 20 additional deputies should be allocated to the contract.
Absolutely.
But we don't know what that is right now because we've contorted ourselves. We've been pulling all these people off the street. We have the same amount of admin support staff. We're putting them into these contracts, so it's very hard to tell that right now. I would suggest, at least for this year, we probably keep it as is,
Okay, that's fine.
but it's something that has to be accounted for.
Commissioner, if I may, two things. First off, the City of Hayden Lake, obviously we have an MOU as opposed to a contract just because they have an existing police department, albeit one officer, but we came up with an average cost. And moving forward with that, I don't know how we want to continue on it, or if we want to stay as is. Obviously with Dalton Gardens and Hayden, as Brandy spoke of, the dedicated and enhanced, there's the issue of adding the overhead costs, which we're in the process. Darren just got us a revised copy, if you will, of the Hayden contract to move forward with the City of Dalton Gardens, present that to them to see where they stand. But I just want to clarify. The other thing I wanted to speak to in regards to staffing, we spoke to, is I think it's important to understand that we've been adequately staffed for many, many years, and none of us have ever seen, as I've been told, of being fully staffed and what that's like. With us being adequately staffed, we've been attending to the community as such, and I think it would be great moving forward to hear from the community as to if they want a fully staffed sheriff's office or remain with an adequately staffed sheriff's office because of the jurisdictional, if we talk to the map of where our layouts are in our districts.
Yeah. Did you say adequate or inadequate?
Adequately.
Adequately staffed.
Meaning we're handling the calls for service. We don't have people throughout the entire county as our jurisdictional map shows, as we've demonstrated to you before. But the mere fact of this is we've never been fully staffed. So to understand what that would look like, having 10 deputies on day shift and swing shift and possibly 8 on graveyard, that alone is 56 deputies. Right now we have 55 deputies assigned to patrol, and only 37 of them are fieldable because of various reasons.
And that's actually, that begs the two questions I have, which is if you don't have enough staff for the county, why would you ever want to enter into contracts and pull those people off the street and put them into contracts that don't even pay for themselves? So that's the first question. I'm not looking for an answer from you on that, but that is one of the questions I have as to why we would ever do that if we have a mission. The other one is, what is the exact service level that we have right now, and how does that change the service level by each additional deputy? What is our average response time from call to showing up at the house today? And what will it be with each additional deputy? How much will it reduce it? Without understanding those numbers, what exactly are people getting?
Understood.
And so that's my whole point of I've always been kind of confused as to why we would ever, one, not know what our service levels are today. At least discuss, okay, this is how we look at service levels. We've got deputies per 1,000, we've got time for service, we've got arrest rate, all those kinds of things that typically law enforcement agencies throughout the country use to measure their effectiveness. And then the next thing is, how many people where does the community want? How many people is it going to take to get there? And under what circumstances will we pull a person off the street and put them into a contract? And, I would argue that if we can start collecting the full Monty, the full dollar amount that it costs for a deputy, we can hire more deputies to backfill them and replace them if we know those contracts are going to hold. But until we know that, I'm not quite sure I understand, we need to have numbers in essence.
I understand the numbers. I also think we need the community impact or input because it's through the community that's been seeking the SROs from us
Okay.
for the benefits. So that's
So what
why
are they going to tell you without numbers? We just want to see more patrol cars? I mean, I'm not trying to be, funny here. I'm trying to say, what will the community be looking at? And then we're going to be the ones taxing them. So what are they going to get? How are you going to articulate what they get?
I understand what the numbers will show. Again, I'm stressing the community impact and involvement, because if we want a fully staffed 7 plus 2, so 9 deputies per shift at least with a sergeant, 10, which we've never had and we've never sought. I understand where the numbers come from, because obviously our call volume has continued to increase, the residency has increased, the population, but also the community involvement. This SRO thing is a immediate need per the community that we've responded to. The sheriff has spoken to that, but the mere fact is, I think they should have an input, if you will, the school districts and the community members to speak on that as to the importance of what they want the sheriff's office to be.
That's fine, but the school district is a taxing district. They can raise enough money to pay for your service.
Yes.
Okay? It's not our job to subsidize your service to other taxing jurisdictions. I don't believe that that's fair, for the county taxpayer. And maybe if the county taxpayer says, yeah, we'll pay for everyone's police department and use the sheriff to be that entity to do it, and we don't care how much it costs, that's fine. That's up to them. But right now, what we've been doing is subsidizing Hayden, subsidizing the school districts, and subsidizing these other cities. And I don't think the community realizes that, to be honest. And I think every time I have a conversation and explain that to them, their eyes kind of get a little glazed and they go, we've been doing what? I'm subsidizing another city's law enforcement and I'm paying county taxes. What am I getting? And so that's what we have to do, is have these numbers so we can show people.
Okay.
You're spot on the money.
All right, so I'll come back at the meeting on the 30th to see if the board has had a chance to look at more information and is ready to decide a percentage of the average loaded cost of the deputies for the SROs, as well as give you figures for the lieutenant for NIC, and then for the cities of Hayden and Dalton Gardens. If we were to do it the way we did the City of Hayden contract in FY26, it would be the full loaded cost of the average cost of deputy for a number of deputies they want, or animal control officer, plus a overhead percentage. I would like to include the overtime cost as well in those contracts, because there is significant overtime that is spent on those contracts as well. At this time, do you want to stick with the 40% overhead for those contracts?
It would seem that we have to start somewhere, but until we start accounting for the actual cost of these contracts, meaning we have separate ledgers, it's impossible for us to give a number that's reflective of the cost. And that's why it's so important that if we're going to be in the contract business, that we do the accounting side of it as well, to properly understand what does it cost us to do this contract? Because we're not allowed to make a profit, right? But we don't want to make a loss.
Correct, and I won't be able to have, solid FY27 numbers for you until we're, end of May in the budget cycle. My goal is to just understand the percentages the board wants to propose, and we can talk further about that at the next meeting, so that I'm able to give a budget number to these agencies by March 1st for the schools and by April 1st for the cities.
Yeah.
And since the cities are more aligned with our fiscal year, I'll give them an updated overhead at the end of May, once the sheriff has submitted all their budgets to me.
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate to just go with the 40% unless the board disagrees. And then let's get the actual numbers. And for FY28, I guess, on the contracts, we can give actual hard cost numbers and say, here it is. This is what it cost us.
Possibly. There are a lot of overhead expenses can't be tracked dollar for dollar per contract. Like, you could say, okay, the sheriff's office has one accounts payable person. Her salary does not get split across 10 departments. It gets coded to the admin budget, but she is doing work for all the departments. And so I am allocating her administrative cost on a per head basis to say, okay, on average per deputy, this is how much it costs for accounts payable. So.
It's reasonable. for some of those things, you can't figure it out, and that's fine. Just amortize it across the board. But for the hard costs, because we haven't been accounting for it, so when we start to account for it, we're going to see it. And we're going to probably discover some things that are more expensive than we're budgeting for, and others that are less expensive than what we're budgeting for.
All right.
In my opinion, each entity should be taking care of everything.
Yeah. Well, we have to account for stuff ourselves, which we haven't been,
Yes.
and that makes it hard for us to properly bill. Are you good? Anything else? All right. We'll move on to item 26. This is a status update item. Kootenai Health Hospital District Board Future. It's a discussion item, and I think this is Commissioner Duncan.
Yes, so a member of the public had reached out and asked when this hospital district was going to be dissolved, because the 2 years happened December of '25. And I did speak with a current member of the board and the legal officer for Kootenai Health, and nobody is ready for the dissolution yet. So there really isn't anything for us to do until we're contacted again by the board or the legal staff.
Okay.
So I just wanted to give an update.
What's going to happen to the hospital?
Nothing, they're continuing to operate as a 501c3. So this just has to do with the commissioner's ability.
501c3.
So this just has to do with what our Board of Commissioners' role is in the non-functioning hospital district board. So, yeah, that's just my recommendation, is we don't have any action until they're ready for dissolution.
Okay. All right, well, 27 was pulled. Public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Hearing nothing. 3:17, meeting adjourned.